Just not the right scene, Tessa. My mother's words, laced with that familiar, dismissive tone, echoed through the country club ballroom. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, reflecting off the polished dance floor, but all I saw was the blurry image of my family, celebrating a milestone I wasn't deemed worthy to witness. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my champagne glass. Design wasn't real work, not like Monroe and Sons. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I remained composed, nodding politely. Later that week, a client emailed a major hotel chain loved my pitch. Another victory, another secret. Ever felt unseen, undervalued? You won't believe what happens next, especially after he gets involved. Subscribe for the ultimate revenge story. It's gonna be good. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. At 10, I designed a birdhouse for Dad's birthday, painstakingly gluing wood scraps together. My brother Ethan received a shiny chemistry set. Dad smiled, ruffling Ethan's hair, and said, "Now that's useful." My birdhouse ended up in the dusty corner of the garage. I saw it there for years. Then came the internships. Ethan, a budding financier, secured a coveted spot at Monroe and Sons during his sophomore year. I meanwhile landed a volunteer position at a local architect's office. "Good for you, dear," Mom said, patting my hand, her eyes glazing over. "But family first, you know." The implied message was clear. Only some family contributions truly mattered. The final straw was my sister Clara's law school graduation gift, a brand new BMW. I had just landed my first big client, a boutique hotel, and proudly showed my parents the renderings. Dad barely glanced at them, saying he was busy reviewing quarterly reports. It felt like a slap in the face. I had the money to buy a car myself, a much nicer car, in fact. But the unspoken hierarchy stung more than any financial disparity ever could. I decided then, no grand announcements, no desperate pleas for recognition, no more shrinking myself to fit their narrow definition of success. My studio, tucked away in a quiet corner of Austin, became my sanctuary. The exposed brick walls, the aroma of leather and beeswax, the soft hum of creative energy, it was a world away from the sterile boardrooms of Monroe and Sons. Every project was a defiant brushstroke against their canvas of corporate conformity. Each satisfied client, a brick in the wall of my own empire. Years passed. Monroe and Sons flourished, or so it seemed from the outside. I heard rumblings of internal strife, of risky investments and declining profits, but my parents never breathed a word to me. Their silence was a form of validation. It confirmed that I was still on the outside, still irrelevant to their grand scheme. Meanwhile, my business boomed. One landmark project, a sprawling ranch renovation in the Texas Hill Country, landed me on the cover of Architectural Digest. Another, a sleek downtown condo tower, earned me a prestigious design award. These milestones, celebrated by my team and my clients, remained carefully concealed from my family. There were times, however, when the weight of the secret felt crushing. Christmas dinners were particularly difficult. The forced smiles, the polite inquiries about my little hobby, the lingering sense of being an outsider looking in. I remember one year, the heat was broken and we were all shivering. The oven was broken and the food was bland. The conversation was stilted and nobody was happy. I wanted to scream, to show them the article in my purse. But I held my tongue, choosing silence over potential humiliation. Then came the invitation to a design expo in Los Angeles. A major opportunity. Franklin Dorsey, a key investor in Monroe and Sons, would be there. A chance encounter, a casual conversation could unravel everything. The expo was a high-wire act. My nameplate, strategically placed, read Tessa M., no Monroe, no family affiliation. I'd rehearsed my answers, prepared for the inevitable question, "Are you related to?" My heart hammered against my ribs as Franklin Dorsey approached my booth, his eyes scanning the portfolio of my work. This was it. Then, a jarring ping. A calendar notification. Dad's birthday gala 1 week. Bile rose in my throat. The black tie affair loomed, a gilded cage of forced smiles and hollow congratulations. Do I risk it? Do I decline? I needed a plan. I booked a week-long spa retreat, conveniently timed to coincide with the gala. I'd send a generic gift basket. Safe, impersonal, deniable. The retreat was a joke. Massages felt like torture. The yoga instructor kept staring at me like I was a failed project. All I could think about was the gala, about my family, about Franklin Dorsey. The day arrived. I scrolled through Instagram, the curated images of the party unfolding in real time. My brother Ethan beaming beside my father, Clara draped in diamonds, and then a picture of Franklin Dorsey looking bored, ironic considering his company was the reason for the celebration. Another ping, a text from my mother, "We missed you, dear, Daddy was asking about you." A lie, always a lie. 3 weeks later, another notification, a family brunch. "Just us," the text read, "a trap, an olive branch." Curiosity, or perhaps a morbid fascination, compelled me to accept. I arrived at the country club, the scene of so many past disappointments. The air hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and unspoken grievances. But something was different. The usual condescending glances were replaced with uncertainty. My mother, usually impeccably dressed, wore a strained smile and a slightly rumpled dress. My father, his face etched with worry lines I'd never noticed before, actually stood to greet me. "Tessa," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Good to see you." I surveyed the table. Ethan fidgeted with his tie. Clara avoided my gaze. The atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. They knew something, but clearly not everything. Their obliviousness was almost comical. I was ready. "So Tessa," my father began, clearing his throat, how's the design business?" The practiced nonchalance dripped with forced casualness. I took a slow sip of water, savoring the moment. "It's going well, Dad, very well actually." My tone was measured, betraying none of the turmoil churning within. Ethan scoffed, a reflex honed over years of sibling rivalry. "Still playing with fabrics, are we?" I smiled, a genuine smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Playing, no, Ethan, creating." That's when it happened. My mother's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face draining of color, her mouth fell open. "What? That's impossible," she gasped, her voice cracking. My father frowned. "What is it, Susan?" She thrust the phone across the table, her hand shaking. My father peered at the screen, his expression shifting from annoyance to disbelief. His eyes widened, then narrowed as he reread the article. I gave him a moment to process. The headline blazed: Monroe and Sons investor Franklin Dorsey pulls funding amidst internal concerns. My father's face flushed crimson. "Dorsey is pulling out," he roared. "But that's suicide for the company." He slammed his fist on the table, rattling the silverware. Clara, finally breaking her silence, leaned forward, her voice laced with panic. "What's going on? What does this have to do with anything?" The article went on to detail Dorsey's sudden change of heart, citing ethical considerations and a desire to support emerging talent. Buried deep in the text was a brief mention of a chance encounter at a design expo, where Dorsey had been deeply impressed by the work of a rising star in the industry. I remained silent, letting the pieces fall into place. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket of shock and realization. My father looked up, his eyes locking with mine. The anger in his face was slowly replaced with something else, a dawning understanding. "Tessa, did you?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "I had nothing to do with Mr. Dorsey's decision, Dad. He simply recognized talent when he saw it." My tone was even, controlled. Ethan spluttered, his face contorted with disbelief. But your little hobby couldn't possibly influence someone like Dorsey." The moment hung in the air. Then my mother, her voice barely a whisper, asked the question that sealed their fate. "Just how successful are you, Tessa?" I leaned back in my chair, a small, satisfied smile playing on my lips. "Let's just say successful enough to buy Monroe and Sons if I wanted to." The silence that followed was deafening. My family gaped, their faces a mixture of shock, denial, and a flicker of something akin to fear. Finally, I thought they see. "Don't be ridiculous," Ethan scoffed, but the bluster lacked its usual conviction. "You're bluffing." I raised an eyebrow. "Am I, Ethan? Ask your father. He knows the state of Monroe and Sons better than anyone. Ask him how desperate he is for capital." My father's eyes darted between Ethan and me, his silence speaking volumes. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He knew how precarious their situation had become. Clara, ever the pragmatist, recovered first. "Okay, Tessa," she said, her voice carefully measured. "Let's not get carried away. Clearly, there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we can work together to resolve this." Her tone was dripping with artificial sweetness. "Work together?" I echoed, tilting my head. "After years of dismissing my work, of excluding me from the family business, you want to work together now?" You laughed then. "You're not laughing now, Clara." My mother, ever the negotiator, chimed in, Tessa, darling, family is family. We've always supported you in our own way. Surely you wouldn't let Dorsey's actions ruin everything your father has built. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost comical. Supported me, I repeated, a hint of steel in my voice. By calling my passion a little thing, by excluding me from every major decision. You call that support? I paused. I needed to let them feel the weight of their actions. I don't need your support now, and your company doesn't need my money. A long silence filled the room and they still waited for a response. Then I rose from the table, my gaze sweeping over their stunned faces. Enjoy your brunch. I turned to leave, pausing at the doorway. Oh, and Dad, happy belated birthday. The one-liner I'd rehearsed for years slipped out effortlessly, a perfect culmination of suppressed rage and newfound power. Don't worry about a gift. I've already given you one, the realization that you underestimated me. I walked out. The air felt lighter, cleaner than inside. But this was far from over. A week later, I received a frantic call from my father. He was practically begging. Tessa, please, we need to talk. Meet me at the office. I hesitated, then agreed. I knew what he wanted, and I had a counter-offer ready. The Monroe and Sons headquarters, a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Austin, felt strangely subdued. The usual buzz of activity was replaced with an air of nervous tension. I was escorted to my father's office, a cavernous space filled with mahogany furniture and pretentious artwork. He looked haggard, years older than the last time I'd seen him. Tessa, he began, his voice strained, thank you for coming. I remained silent, letting him stew. The situation is dire, he admitted, his gaze fixed on the floor. Dorsey's withdrawal has triggered a cascade of problems. Our stock price has plummeted. Our creditors are circling. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. A regrettable situation, I replied, my tone devoid of sympathy. He looked up, his eyes pleading. We need your help, Tessa. We need your investment. The company, your family's legacy, it's all at stake. My investment? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. After years of dismissing my success, you expect me to bail you out. I know we haven't always appreciated you, Tessa, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We were wrong, terribly wrong. But this isn't just about us. It's about the employees, the shareholders, the community. This company is important. He paused, adding, it's all I have. And what exactly do you propose? I asked, cutting to the chase. He laid out his plan, a massive infusion of capital in exchange for a significant stake in the company. It was a desperate gamble, and he knew it. I considered his offer for a moment, then shook my head. I'm not interested in simply throwing money at your problems, Dad. I'm not a charity. His face fell. Then what do you want, Tessa? What will it take? I leaned forward, my voice low and deliberate. I want control. He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Control? But that's impossible. I can't just hand over the reins of the company. Then I guess you'll have to watch it crumble, I said, standing to leave. Wait. He cried, his voice cracking. Wait, please. What kind of control are you talking about? I turned back, a faint smile playing on my lips. I'm not interested in micromanaging your day-to-day operations, Dad. I'm interested in protecting the company from further mismanagement. I want a seat on the board with veto power over all major financial decisions. And I want something else. I paused for dramatic effect. The Monroe Foundation, I stated calmly. I want complete control of the Monroe Foundation. His face paled. The Monroe Foundation was his pride and joy, his legacy project. It was the vehicle through which he channeled charitable donations, burnishing his reputation and wielding influence in the community. It was everything. The foundation, he stammered, shaking his head. But that's my life's work. I can't just give it to you. Then let the company fail, I said, turning to leave again. It's your choice. He stood there, frozen, torn between his pride and the survival of his company. The silence stretched on, thick with tension. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. What? What will you do with it? I'll use it to support causes you've neglected, I said, my voice ringing with purpose. I'll fund programs for underprivileged children, for environmental conservation, for the arts. I'll use it to make a real difference in the world instead of just stroking your ego. He closed his eyes, his face a mask of defeat. Then he nodded slowly. All right, he whispered. All right, you can have it, just save the company. With those words, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. I had them. Not just financially, but morally. I had control of their legacy, their reputation, their very identity. the foundation would be mine, and I would use it to reshape the world in my own image. As I walked out of the office, I could feel the weight of their stunned silence behind me. I had won. But the victory felt hollow. Was this what I really wanted? As I drove away, I saw my reflection in the rear-view mirror. It was no longer the face of a neglected daughter. It was the face of a woman in control. But what would she do with this newfound power? Years drifted, colored by selective family interactions. My father, humbled, awkwardly sought advice. I offered measured guidance, the company stabilizing under my influence, the foundation blossoming. Ethan, chastened, extended hesitant olive branches. Clara remained aloof, simmering with resentment, a constant reminder of the chasm that still existed. Looking back, the true victory wasn't about money or control. My life bloomed. My studio expanded, attracting top talent. I bought a beach house, waking to the ocean's symphony. The Range Rover became a symbol of earned freedom. In the end, true power wasn't external, but the quiet strength of knowing my worth. Free from their shadows, I built my own light. Revenge sweet. Now, worth is. Now, how will you rewrite your story? Share your triumph. Someone needs your spark. Own it.